Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Eternal Possibility Hour. I am Esther Piszczek, and I am so excited to introduce you today to my friend Stephanie Sahanow, who is an occupational therapist, a published poet, a personal coach, and an artist. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi. Thank you for including me in your broadcast.
You are welcome. So, you are a published poet as of just recently, I think.
Yes, I was published in an international periodical called Present Time, put out by Rational Island Publications, and I have next quarter I'm going to be in it again.
Wow, fabulous. Have you been writing poetry your entire life?
I've not been writing poetry my entire life, but I've been reading poetry since I was a very young child. In fact, I had a lot of difficulty learning how to read, and poetry was what inspired me to persist with the struggle and learn how to read.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I liked all the imagery that was created in the poems, and once I got like used to the rhythm and the rhyming part of the poetry, then I had something to sink my teeth into, and then I practiced reading the words over and over until I taught myself how to read like that.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you have been on a bit of a journey the last couple of years, and
Yes.
would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that it has informed your new interest in actually writing poetry and not just reading poetry.
Yes, I'm assuming you're talking about my cancer journey. Is that right? Okay. I was diagnosed with cancer last year in 2022, and I decided that I was going to art my way through cancer and use creativity as a healing modality because I'm an occupational therapist, and what else am I going to do? So I decided to do a painting every day about my cancer journey, and it turned out that they were all about like the emotional experiences and the physical things I was going through having cancer. And then I got connected with Cancer Lifeline, and they have these writing groups there. And so I just started attending the writing groups as well. And then during my writing sessions with Cancer Lifeline, I would end up writing poetry. I could have written poetry or prose or whatever, but poetry is what was flowing out of my fingertips onto my computer.
So I want to talk about that because poetry, at least my experience with poetry, is that poetry has some rules. So it has to be, 3 lines or 5 lines or rhyming or not rhyming or so many stanzas. So talk to us a little bit about poetry for those who aren't really kind of in the know.
Okay, well, yes, there are some types of poetry that are like that, and they are not the poems that I know how to write. And so except for haiku, which is 17 syllables, like the first line is 5 syllables, then the second line is 7 syllables, and the last line is 5 syllables, and the theme has to be about nature. That's as much as I know about the rules of poetry. The kind of poetry that I write is called free verse, and the only rule in free verse is that there can't be any rules. So I don't write things that have like I don't know how to write a sonnet or any other forms like that. I like to read that stuff, but I wouldn't know how to do it. So I just write in a way that makes sense to me to express the thing that's on my heart without very many rules at all.
I guess that makes it a lot easier.
And some people in my writing group told me that's called free verse. So that's how I know that word.
Okay, excellent. So how does somebody go about doing that?
Oh, you mean like if you wanted to write poetry, how you would do it? Well, I can tell you that I'll tell you 2 main things that I would recommend. One is just begin it. And I know that sounds really easy to say, and it's way harder to do than it is to say. But the only way that we get anywhere is by taking action. And I have like a bunch of poems that I've written that aren't any good, and I have them in another file, and I keep them as seeds because there's something that inspired me to write that bad poem. So I think that idea is still a worthy idea, and I might write another poem about that same idea later. So I don't think, even though the poem might not have worked out how I wanted it, I don't think there's any bad ideas in poetry. And the other thing I would recommend is to get rid of all the shoulds. Like it should be perfect, or it should be good, or it should be publishable, or it should be a particular form. I don't believe in the shoulds, because all the shoulds do is stop me from writing, which is why I choose free verse, because I would rather write every Thursday like clockwork for 2 hours. Like I have 2 hours a week that is my special writing time. And my friends all know, do not ask me to do anything during on Thursdays between 1 and 3, because I will always say no, because that's my scheduled writing time.
Yes, I've heard that from other professional writers, that you have to really protect that time and be dedicated and committed to it in order to encourage the inspiration to flow and the words to come.
Yes, and I've even been accused of being a professional writer now because I have that dedicated time.
How fabulous.
Yeah.
And you're published, so you are a professional writer.
Yes, I suppose that means I am.
So I want to talk to you about images and poetry. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your cancer journey, because I think, at least from what I've seen, from other people experiencing cancer, there's a real tendency to go into it with this, put on your armor, we're going into battle, we're going to fight, 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 fight. And it sounds like you have taken a much different approach. So would you like to talk to us about that?
Yes, I decided not to use combative or hostile language. So I'm not a cancer warrior. I don't fight a battle with cancer or anything like that. I just used cancer as an opportunity to get into alignment with my most authentic self and not use hostile language. And so I decided to be unguarded, which meant that I was vulnerable and exposed. And so I did this painting and then wrote a poem about it, and I'd be happy to share it with you.
I'd love that.
Okay, so here's the painting. And you can see this is me looking at myself in a pool of water, and I've put my helmet and my armor and my sword down. And this is one of the characters from my books, The Cancer Chronicles, a cartoon memoir. His name is the Rabbit of Radical Responsibility, and he's laying relaxed on his back and saying he's with me, and the moon is saying, we want all of you, the real you. And so the poem is called Hineni, which is the Hebrew word for I am here, the way that like when we're totally present, completely 100% present. So the poem is this. I have removed my helmet, gauntlets, and breastplate. I lay down my sword and shield. I am unarmored, exposed, vulnerable. I'm done living behind defenses. I've come out from behind my walls. I lay on my back, relaxing in deep grass, soft underbelly unprotected, throat exposed to sky and air. The river's roar and the cricket's chirps are deafening. I wouldn't hear an enemy approaching. Never mind, I willingly risk it. The moon shines down on me. I smile back in greeting. We gaze at one another, choosing to spend this evening together. My lungs breathing the cool night air. I exhale fear with each breath. I inhale life in this cool meadow. I am open to whatever comes.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
And so which came first, the poem or the image?
This one, I did a little bit of writing about just these ideas, and then I painted the painting, and then I wrote the poem. So it was kind of a 3-part process, this one. Sometimes that's what I do. Like I write random sentences about some idea that I'm exploring. And then sometimes the painting comes first, sometimes the poem comes first, sometimes the poem flows out of me immediately and I don't have time to paint. Sometimes the poem inspires a painting, sometimes I do a painting and I think there's got to be a poem in that, and then I do the poem. It just depends.
So do you have a painting to go with every poem?
I do not.
Okay. So sometimes it's just the poem, or sometimes it's just the painting, but they don't match up.
Yes, every painting that I've done in the last about 166 days or so, everyone has at least some writing with it, but it's not all necessarily poems. And most of the time I don't illustrate my poems, just some of the time I do.
Okay. You mentioned in your little intro there to that poem about the Cancer Chronicles. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I was posting my daily paintings on my Facebook page and social media, and my friends who even didn't have cancer kept saying, I'm learning so much from your cancer journey. You need to publish. You need to publish. And so I thought, well, after my surgery is done and after I have time to like recover, I'm going to try to publish. And so I created this comic book called The Cancer Chronicles, a cartoon memoir, which is available on Amazon if you search for my name, or we can put some links below. And then people really loved it and they said, do more, do more. So I made The Cancer Chronicles, a cartoon memoir, volume 2, and then also 3 and 4. And I've submitted for publication book 5. And I'm in the waiting period to find out if it's ready to be published or if it needs any editing. And then if it will be published, and it'll probably be available by mid-October, I would think.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. So have you
Yeah.
heard from people who have read your books?
Yes, I get a lot of really delightful feedback. People are telling me that they learned so much and they're passing them around. So like somebody maybe buys it for themselves and then they give it to someone else. I know that somebody in Amsterdam bought one, somebody in Ireland bought one. Actually, the one in Ireland, they've bought multiple sets to give to other people because they wrote to me and told me that. There's some in Australia, some in England, a lot in the United States, mostly the United States, but it's available internationally in many countries.
Wow. And so it's not it's called a cartoon memoir, right? So
Yeah.
what does that mean exactly?
Um, the the little crab right here represents my cancer, and this represents me. This little doodle avatar is me. And so the crab and I have all of these adventures together that are about having cancer. And so there's some things like, this is my doodle avatar on day 2 after I found that I was diagnosed. And this is me as Edvard Munch's The Scream. And this day is all about terror, some planning, but mostly terror. And then I asked myself the question this day, how is this happening for me rather than to me? Which is a really important question to contemplate. And then this is like the whole world looked different to me on day 3. So I was seeing the world through cancer colored glasses. And there are images of me doing different things. Like this one was the day that I went to the cancer center and had my introduction to everybody and got all the paperwork, and it was like a whirlwind. And so I did it like a painting of that movie Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock. So there's some like pop references, and then there's a lot of things that I was figuring out. Like this one, the crab is teaching me, ask for what you want or ask for what you need. So the crab is my teacher, so I portrayed it as a teacher. And there's one that I want to show you, this one, which is me and the crab surfing, and we're surfing waves of fear, grief, and nausea with supportive floaties and a life vest. So you can see. So they're all things like that. That I just turned my experience into some kind of an image, and then several, like the crab is not the only character that shows up repeatedly. Like you already saw the Rabbit of Radical Responsibility. There's also a character called the Slug of Blame. There's also a technology robot. And then there are certain environments, like I have an environment that's my comfort zone and an environment that's my discomfort zone. And those environments come up repeatedly as I'm learning new things in those environments.
That is so beautiful. What I love about that is generally when you're talking about characters being created, so technology robot, where you're actually kind of taking technology and making it into a character in your life, is that generally that's happening in a fictional setting. And you're actually using it, like combining that as into a memoir. So it's your real life experience, but then actually taking like the rabbit of radical responsibility and making it into a character as your friend, as your companion who's coming along on this journey with you. And even the crab, the cancer crab, who's, you know, showing you new ways to look at the world, new ways to look at yourself, and then actually teaching you things. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and the crab, like in book 3, he turns red because where I come from, I'm from Washington State in the Pacific Northwest, upper left-hand corner of the United States of America. We have these crabs called Dungeness crabs that are gray, like the first book, and except when they're boiled, like to eat them, they turn bright red, like this. So that's why the crab changes color, like throughout, from the beginning of the series to the middle of the series.
Because of your cancer treatment?
Yes, because like once his goose was cooked,
Right.
he was red.
Yeah. And
After
interesting that he's still a character.
he's still a character because I'm still having more treatment but he's not in my body anymore. So that's why he's red. His goose is cooked. But I'm still like having physical therapy. I'm still having reconstructive surgeries. Like I had a lot of deformities after the mastectomies. And so I'm having to there are these large lumps of tissue underneath my armpits that feel like branches, and it makes it hard for me to walk with good arm swing. And so I'm having those revised and trimmed down. I had aesthetic flat closure, so I'm not intending to get new breasts. And that comes up sometimes in the books. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very tender journey that you're on. And I really applaud your creativity and your courageousness in going about it a different way than I would think the mainstream population approaches this type of a journey.
Thank you. I did a meme recently that was for my blog that was, I don't recommend getting cancer, but if you do have cancer, I recommend doing it my way. Part of your way through it. Because it's working really well for me. I mean, most people would say cancer is a really bad experience. And I'm going to say something now that you're going to probably, your jaw will drop, but I'm going to tell you that having cancer has been a really good experience for me. It's been scary, but it's motivated me to look at what terrifies me. And so then in exploring what terrifies me, I've healed a lot of the things that have terrified me in the past. And so it's not just about healing from the cancer, it's about like healing my soul from my entire life of trauma.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that every experience that we have is an opportunity to heal or an opportunity not to. I really love that you're showing a really beautiful example of how to take something that's really scary and most people would say devastating and turning it into a healing life transformation experience. And also then sharing that with others.
Yes, my goal is for these books to get out there. Like if you get them and you read them and you like them and you know somebody who wants them, give them your copies or loan them your copies or send them copies, because I think that they are very healing for people who just have regular life challenges without cancer can benefit from them. So I think my goal is to leave the world a better place than how I found it. And this is one of the ways that I'm doing that, by putting healing books out into the world.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I really love your imagery that you've chosen. And it's a very simple kind of representational, non-representational style, but your colors are really beautiful. And so have you always been an artist, or how did you come about to create this beautiful style in your artwork?
I've been a doodler all my life, but like mostly doodled things like if you look through my occupational therapy notes when I was a kid and I was in OT school, you would see that they are filled with pictures of my left hand, because that was like something that was there, and I listened better when I doodled. And so I would doodle pictures of my left hand doing various things. I've always like drawn, but not for any particular purpose, just mostly to keep myself focused. And then I took the Heartwork journaling certification. So I became a certified Heartwork journaling instructor and coach. And in that, I was really focused on doodling my emotions, which is the whole theme of that body of work. And so most of the images in my daily paintings are something to do with my emotions, my emotional experience of having cancer, or of just having whatever happened that day, even if it's not cancer related. And so they're all like, I feature in most of them, not all of them, but most of them, as my doodle avatar. And all of them have this big red heart filling up the chest, because I choose love. That's the way that I lead my life, is I lead with love.
Yeah, and it feels to me that the way that you're approaching your cancer journey is a way of loving yourself through it, as opposed to pushing the cancer away or picking up your sword to slash it and stab it.
Mm-hmm.
And those have a very different feeling.
Yeah. I would much rather be in love in the world. And if there's anything that is knocking me out of love with the people or beings that I encounter, then I want to figure out, what is it? What thought am I having that is making me feel more distant from that being than I would like to be? And then doing something like choosing a different option of thought that allows me to come back into my connection and love that being. And by being, I mean, like, it can be like a fly. The other day I found a spider that was dying, and I just took it outside, and it crawled up onto my gardening glove, and I just stayed with it, and I spoke to it and wished it an auspicious rebirth, and I told it that I loved it, and I just accompanied it while it was living the last moments of its life. That's my nature.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you have a really beautiful poem about that called Precious Neighbor. Would you like to share that with us?
Oh yes, let me pull up Precious Neighbor. Oh, Esther, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to find it. It got closed. Okay, I'm gonna screen share so you can see it. Precious neighbor, in my enduring dreams, I can remember what I sometimes forget in my brief waking life. These eternal stones and trees in the front garden and the woods, they are my precious neighbors. The loamy soil and the weeds and worms it contains are also my precious neighbors. The humming, buzzing, rushing birds, insects, and rivers are my precious neighbors. A fly that dances in circles near my feet. Hello, precious neighbor. The erratic driver risking all of our lives. This too is my precious neighbor. The wounded souls among us now and who were and who will be are our precious neighbors. The people who have harmed me knowingly or unknowingly, they too are my precious neighbors. The people with different values from me who help me clarify what I value, they are my precious neighbors. My perfect, flawed, sometimes unintentionally harm-causing and still loving self, I too am a precious neighbor.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you had mentioned Heartwork journaling, and actually that's where you and I met, through our Heartwork journaling certification.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned doodling your emotions. And
Yes.
so could you talk to me a little bit about how what would you say to someone on the street who said, hey, this is really great. I love your book. I want to do this for myself. Where would they begin?
Oh, I think Doodle Your Emotions by Maritza Para is a really great way to begin. And then after that program, there's the next program is Heartwork Journaling University. And I definitely recommend that one. I love everything that Maritza Para does through Heartwork Journaling is amazing and healing and restorative and empowering. So I definitely recommend that. I went through the next level, which is the certification process. So I'm certified to teach it and to coach using the materials that she uses. And so you could also come to me for coaching, and I could help you with it.
Yeah. So what if somebody doesn't want to take a course from Maritza or come to you from coaching? Do you have ideas for them?
Oh, figure out your doodle avatar. Just, like mine is very short haired because I have very short hair. I have a buzz cut, and I put myself in an outfit that was my favorite colors of purple and blue. And I put that big heart on my chest because I wanted to lead with love. So figure out your doodle avatar and then think about your emotions and what you're feeling, and then try to come up with an image that relates to that feeling.
Yeah. So I've also gone through the certification. So I have my doodle avatar doing all kinds of things. And sometimes it's, stomping the ground and throwing a fit and crying. And sometimes it, reaching out its arms for a hug. And so I think that any emotion that you're having, it's helpful to see it on the page and to paint it lovingly and to draw it. And for me, it brought a whole new level of awareness about what I was thinking or feeling just by putting on the page, like just that simple action of putting on the page. Is that similar for you?
Yes, very much. The thing I like about doing the doodles is it's like thinking about myself at a meta level. It's like less personalized, and so I can explore ideas that might be too tender to touch if I was thinking about them with me, but I can think about them with my doodle avatars. So like, for instance, there was one day where I just kept missing connections, and there's somebody that I really care about and love, and I wanted to connect, and we were having a hard time. Everything we said irritated each other, and so I did us as two trapeze artists, and our fingers just missed, but there was a safety net underneath it, and the safety net was mutual commitment to the relationship. And so even though we missed our connections and one of us fell, it didn't matter because we had that safety net of mutual commitment to one another. And that way I could think about it and not say, oh, you're the guilty party, or I'm the guilty party, or anything like that. I could just say, yeah, we were irritated today and we had these misconnections. It doesn't mean that the world will stop turning. It doesn't mean somebody's a bad person. It doesn't mean someone's a villain. We just missed each other. That's all.
Yeah, bringing some neutrality to that and understanding that there's a deeper relationship there that doesn't go away just because there's one bad moment or one uncomfortable moment between you.
Yeah. And also I can use it to reduce my fear. Like the day of my breast amputation, I did a picture of the crab holding hands with my surgeon, and they were walking out the door, and I was in the bed in the hospital room, and I was waving goodbye, and the crab was looking over its shoulder, waving goodbye to me. And so it was a way of taking away some of the fear by just making it safe. It was just a painting on a page. No harm.
Yep, exactly. So what would you tell someone who says, well, I'm not an artist. I don't know how to draw anything, that this won't work for me.
Oh, if you can draw circles and squares and triangles and things, you can probably doodle your emotions and the heartwork journaling method. I didn't know really how to draw like this until I started practicing. And so like if you look at the evolution of my doodle avatar, I started out with like a round circle with all these like spiky hairs and a stick neck. And it doesn't look anything like my current doodle avatar, but it evolved into this current doodle avatar over time. And I was so glad that I'd been doing Doodle Your Emotions and Heartwork journaling for about 6 months when I got diagnosed. So I already had this way of expressing myself to use it for when I needed it for healing. And so I think if you can just like draw a stick person, that's all you need to be able to do. A stick person is like a circle, a line down, 2 lines like that for legs, and lines like that for arms. Like just, you can even do one straight across like that. And then I use reference photos. Like if I want to figure out how do I draw myself reaching forward, I would look for an image online for a person reaching forward, looking at their palm. And then I would see how to draw it. And I would just try to do something like based on that drawing. It never looks like exactly like that drawing, but like I said before, it's not about perfection. It's just about getting your feelings on the page.
Right. And it's really just for you. I mean, you're sharing your work with all kinds of other people now through your books, and your poetry, but I think that it's super helpful, even if you share it with absolutely no one. If you
Yeah, the
just
first
do it for yourself.
the first 7 or 8 months I never shared any of it with anyone. Well, maybe well, I didn't share anything with anyone until I got cancer. And then it was just because I have many people who wanted daily updates, and I didn't feel like calling that many people. And so I started a Give in Kind, which is like a website where it hosts a blog for you. You can put up images and writing. So I just started putting the images and writing on the Give in Kind page. So then people could see like they could pull instead of me having to push information to them. And they could pay attention to it when they had energy and time for it. And I didn't have to call people and waste my precious little energy calling 100 people.
Yeah, that's really smart. So is that a link that you're going to provide for people? I mean, if people are
Oh
interested
yeah, I
in
could.
seeing this interview, could they kind of tune into your daily blog?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay. I think that would be really wonderful. Okay, so let's get back to poetry.
Okay.
So tell me how your journey with cancer, and I mean, you talked a little bit about cancer lifeline, excuse me, the cancer lifeline, and then also your heartwork journaling certification. How do those all kind of come together um, to help you write these poems?
Oh, well, the poems are about whatever is happening for me on any given day. Like the day, like sometimes some idea will occur to me, and then I'll just feel like I need to write a poem about it. And usually I keep a list of ideas, like words, just words that mean something to me. Like I have this idea that I haven't developed into a poem yet. That is that the word scared and the word sacred are the exact same letters, only the 2 letters are switched to make it sacred versus scared. And so I think there's material for a poem in there. I just haven't figured out that poem yet. But then there's other things like I've been I'm gender expansive, and I've been trying to get people to use my preferred pronouns, which are they, them. And there are people in my life that, because I have cancer, I'm trying to reconnect. Like I decided, if I have no idea how much time I have left, I'm cleaning up all the places where I still have old wounds and where people have old wounds with me. And so I decided I was going to clean up all my relationships. And I decided that I was going to ask for people to use my preferred pronouns. And some people do, and some people don't. And so I wrote a poem about it, which I can read to you if you would like to see.
I would love that. Please share.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an image that is the painting that I did. Here's the Heartwork journaling style painting. This is called Gender Clear. And while you're looking at that, you can see that It's female and male, and I'm in the middle because I'm a combination of male and female, as opposed to one or the other. Okay. And here's the poem called Microaggressions. They think they're being kind, thoughtful, inclusive. They still misgender me, even after I tell them I prefer the singular they. Some are willing to use my preferred pronouns, but don't know how. Some insist that it is a grammatically incorrect use of the word they. I can inform them that there are examples in Shakespeare. The singular they has been used for hundreds of years. I can demonstrate how we use it easily in everyday language. Someone dropped their wallet in the parking lot. Will you please put it in the lost and found in case they come back for it? Those who don't want to learn my pronouns will not be moved. Those who want to learn earn my respect with every attempt. The important thing to me is that they try. Did you catch that singular they I just used so naturally? We are the transitional generation. We are learning this new use of language. Go ahead and try. Even if you make an error, simply correct it. The only thing I will hear is the correction. The last thing you say. I choose to ignore the error itself once it has been corrected. I interpret your self-correction as a sign of love, care, and respect. I feel seen when you use my preferred pronouns, even if awkwardly. If that's too hard, you can just call me beloved one.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
How would the world change if we all walked around calling each other beloved one?
Oh, wouldn't it be fabulous?
It would be so fabulous.
Yes.
I have a guy friend who is close to me, and he calls females my love. So he's always referring to as my love, and it always makes you feel like super, super special and always loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really great.
This is also reminding me of the poem I Choose Love, which I would love to share with you.
Fabulous.
Okay. This one, I created this poster of it so that it could be available on Zazzle because so many people wanted it. And this is my little doodle avatar blowing bubbles in the shapes of hearts. And you'll see why in a moment. I choose love. At first, I misunderstood. I had some training based in confusion. I was taught not to love. It was too risky. Those who were expected to love me were unable to do it. I was left wanting, unsatisfied. I chose numbness instead. Holding back feels wrong. I've changed my mind. I've explored my options. I've weighed the risks and the rewards. I'm making a new choice. I've decided now. It's my final decision. I'm loving full out. My love is free and wide and deep. It requires no measuring spoon, no measuring cup. It is not dependent on another person going first, nor is it transactional in any way. It is simply my choice. No need to personally know all beings to love them. I breathe my love out into the world like bubbles on the wind. I choose love in all circumstances. Yes, even those circumstances. I will love those who are difficult for me to love. I must in order for me to be completely free. If they try to destroy me, I will love them anyway. If they succeed, at least my fear will have been tempered by my love. I love you. Yes, you. Yes, I mean you. This poem makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I love that painting that goes with it. And it's such a beautiful example of your imagery and your poetry coming together.
Yes, sometimes
Yeah.
they do.
And it's also a really beautiful example of how that image, so your doodle avatar, your little stick figure there, and just blowing those little heart bubbles out into the world. I mean, that's such a powerful image, and it doesn't really require the poem in order to be a powerful image.
Yes. The image existed in this case before the poem. And then once I wrote the poem, I Choose Love, I thought, oh, I have a painting to illustrate this one. And so then I combined them.
Yeah, beautiful. So that poem, I want to talk to you about that just for a moment, because in that poem you're saying you've made that conscious choice to just love everyone, even the hateful, even the, terrible people in the world, and even if they're being mean to you and disregarding you. And I know that you have had a personal history of a lot of traumatic relationships. And so, how do you now, after making that choice to choose love, how do you deal with it when you get triggered or somebody comes into your world that's not being kind to you or nice to you? What do you do? Like, what would you tell somebody who's having that happen in their lives?
I love this question. This is something that's taken me years to evolve to the point where I am right now. And the way that I do it is like when somebody's behaving in a way that's harmful or destructive, I remind myself that their distress is driving their bus. That I remind myself that everyone is inherently good, and it's it's the training that we get from society, and it's the wounds that we've sustained because of the times that we experienced something distressing and nobody was there to listen and support us, that causes these that's the cause of trauma, basically. But if we recognize that that person's triggered and that it's their distress that's driving their bus and that they are an inherently good person, even if their action is very destructive, then it's easy to continue to love them. And that like that idea, the thought that everybody is an inherently good person, and when they're behaving this way, it's because they're distressed. That thought leads me to the emotion of compassion. And compassion, it just makes it so easy to love people. And sometimes just when they are responding to me in a way that is, or like attacking me, something that feels destructive, if I remind myself of this, I can just hold space for them in their distress and not take the bait if they're trying to pick a fight, not get defensive if they're really attacking hard. I'm not attached to making sure that everybody has a good opinion of me, because their opinion of me actually is none of my business and it doesn't have anything to do with me. It's a kind of projection. And I'm confident now in who I am. When I was not confident in who I am and who I was, then I would be very defensive and want to explain why I did something or said something or why somebody's action is really harmful to me. But now that I know who I am and I'm confident about it, I don't have that same driving need to say my side of it. And so I have so much more capacity to just hold compassion and love. And then a lot of times, miraculously, a lot of times people soften and change the way that they're acting toward me. Not because of me asking, but just because I'm not being defensive and I'm just holding space for them and loving them. They rise to that level.
Yeah, I think that brings you right back to that first poem you share with us about taking off your armor and revealing the soft underbelly and the vulnerability and your wide open throat to the sky
Yeah.
and saying, here I am. And if I don't have a sword, then why are you wielding a sword at me?
Yeah.
So it makes it much easier for people to also just to put down their weapons and say, all right, well, we're just two people trying to get through the world.
Yeah.
That's how we know how.
Yes. It's the case for most people. And
Yeah.
it's like a kind of magic. It's a kind of alchemy. Love
Mm.
is a kind of alchemy.
I think it's the best and the brightest
Yeah.
and the most powerful tool that any human has is love.
Yeah. Just telling you about this, I can feel like tremors inside my body, like energetic shivers. I don't know
Mhm,
if you can see it, but it's one of the ways my body tells me that I'm speaking truth
mhm.
is when I get this vibration inside me. And right now I'm having a lot of this vibration.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you said something really key in there. You said the words "when I remember."
Yes.
Yes.
It's
How do
not easy to do it all the
you
time.
know? How do you go about remembering? What are the tools that you use? Because I think that's really the key. When we become triggered, it's so easy to just like flash back into that old person before we chose love for the world. and for ourselves. So what do you do?
Well, I don't have 100% track record.
Well, I don't know that any human does, so you are
Yeah.
forgiven. Thank you for being human, Stephanie.
When I feel distressed, whenever I can, I try to first acknowledge that something's up for me. Frequently, I put my hand here and take a breath. And then I say, okay, if I'm in this conflict with this person in front of me, or on the phone or wherever, video chat, then they're probably feeling distressed like I am. We're human. And when I put my hand here, it helps me take a deep breath. And then I can see that I'm a person in distress and therefore a person who needs love and compassion. And I can see the person in front of me is a person in distress who needs love and compassion. Sometimes it slips over me before I even, like sometimes I get triggered and I've slipped into it before I even have a chance to take a breath. But at some point during most interactions, I realize, oh, I'm in it. I need to do this breath. I need to put my hand on my heart, which is where I feel like I connect with myself. And then I turn that compassion and love toward myself. And then I turn that compassion and love toward the other person next. Like I first have to do it for myself. And then I have to do it for the other person. And sometimes it can be like one breath's worth, but the other person feels like I'm being not responsive and it triggers them more. So I've taught the people in my world that when I do that, that's me needing a moment to get centered so that I can attend to them. It's not a slight, it's not abandonment of them. It's making myself available to pay attention to them. And sometimes if it's not working for me, like the person is so triggered or I'm so triggered, then I separate, end a phone call, go in my office, do some, somehow get time to myself. And then I do some kind of art, usually either art or Sudoku. Sudoku is another way that I calm my brain, or some breathing exercise, meditation.
Yeah.
But then
really
I come back and try to do a repair. Like what I've noticed is that conflict is a human experience. We are going to have conflict. What the key factor in maintaining healthy relationships is how we do repair after there's been disruption. And so that's partly what I like. If I'm doodling, if I'm writing, if I'm painting or whatever, I'm thinking about what do I need? What does the other person need? How can I affect a repair? Where did it go wrong? How can I avoid doing that again? And, the rabbit of radical responsibility, that is part of me that takes radical responsibility for whatever part I contributed to any situation, even if it was like the other person came in and just started yelling at me because they had bad traffic and they were taking it out on me. So let's say that it's 90% them. I might have reacted rather than responded. And that reaction, that's my responsibility. So if there's a conflict, I'm going to look for what part I played in it, and I'm going to take responsibility for that part and then apologize for that part. The other person gets to choose if they apologize for the part that they played in the conflict or not. Frequently they don't. But I don't have any power over their behavior. All I have is power over my behavior and my thoughts and my results. So that's what I'm focusing on, because I'm the one who's responsible for me in this lifetime. I get like this little bit of time as a learning laboratory on Earth. And by golly, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And being the rabbit of radical responsibility is helping me to learn as much as I can and evolve as quickly as I can in this lifetime.
It's beautiful. That sounded almost like a really beautiful introduction to your personal coaching style. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I do address some of these things in my coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have another poem you'd like to share with us?
Let's see. I'm going to share My Bad, which is about this.
Perfect.
It's about making mistakes. So this is a very natural poem to share right here. Okay, My Bad. When I was a child, making mistakes was forbidden. Mistakes caused explosions. It's uchenweh for you. That's a Yiddish term, meaning like you're in trouble. I was led to believe that mistakes were justification for an attack, sometimes physical, always emotional, always devastating, soul crushing. I learned to hide my mistakes and became a perfectionist until one day when I rebelled. I went into recovery. I'm a recovering perfectionist, a recovering type A. Lately, I've been noticing that when I admit I was wrong, admit that I've made a mistake, admit that I don't know something, the world continues to rotate upon its axis as per usual. Sometimes people are confused or even inconvenienced, but the worst that happens is that they are disappointed, or I am. Sometimes there are financial costs, sometimes loss of time. But lately I've noticed that when I make mistakes and own up to them, repair and restore anything damaged, I feel better for it. No caverns of guilt inside me. Deep reservoirs of tears have started to flow out of me. The relief is immense, and all I have to do is admit the truth. I made a mistake. Saying it, releasing it into the world has me feeling so much lighter. I'm innately good to the core. Mistakes do not erase my goodness. In fact, mistakes and failure occur in nature when one is learning. They are proof that I am alive, proof that I am learning, proof that I am growing, proof that the world does not stop turning. It's as simple as saying, my bad, in my pass the salt voice. Nothing tragic happens. Sometimes I even laugh at myself. Sometimes my honest vulnerability creates deeper connection with those who have witnessed my humanness and my mistakes. My wish now is for everyone to be able to admit to their mistakes and to grow from them, and that those impacted respond with forgiveness, kindness, understanding, gentleness, and love. Imagine a world where that was the standard response. Imagine how creative we would all be if we were not afraid to make mistakes. We'd be so very brave if we all owned the phrase, my bad. We'd be so very brave if we all responded with, that's okay, let's figure it out together.
That was lovely.
Thanks.
That was a really long poem,
Yes,
which,
some of them are.
but yes, but I want to talk about that because it had so many different kind of tiers of understanding. You know,
Yes.
it kind of went from level to level to level and ended so beautifully. So how do you have any, you said you started out with there are no rules. Oh, no, I'm going to ask you about rules. Do you have any rules about length or anything else? Or you just allow it to evolve and become what the poem wants to be?
I let it do what it's going to do. I let it go where it's going to go. I'm the instrument that writes this thing, but I don't know who's actually doing the writing. It's coming through me. It's
That's
partly of
beautiful.
me, but it's partly of something else. And
Yeah.
so I don't try to restrict maybe it's a muse, maybe it's, I don't know what, but I don't try to restrict it. I just let it go.
Yeah.
Sometimes I edit later, but it can still be quite long even after the edits.
So are these poems mostly just flowing through as they are, or are you doing a lot of scratching out and rewriting and rethinking?
Um, the way that I write poetry on Thursdays is I do 2 15-minute writing periods, and then we read our poetry to each other. And I usually allow myself probably 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to write each one. And then later, like at the end of the writing session, like I read what I've written in its raw form. And then later I might give myself 10 more minutes to edit something. Maybe sometimes it's an hour if it's a really tricky thing. But I try to keep it as as raw as I can without very many edits. The only ones that require a lot of edits are the ones where I go with an intention to write something specific in advance, and then that's not where the muse is taking me that day. So I'm forcing something that's not ready to be born to try to be born. That one requires a lot of edits, and that usually goes into my file of things that here's a seed, look at it later when the time is right.
Yeah.
Or the other ones are, if I want it to rhyme, like I'm trying to work on this one called Dancing in My Discomfort Zone. And because it's about dancing, I want it to sound musical, and so I want it to rhyme. So I have all the ideas, the raw form of the poem, and then I need to look at the content and see how can I put in some rhymes at the end of some of the lines. So that one, even though it could be considered finished, I'm considering it unfinished because I want to change it into something that could be lyrics. But it's fine as it is, truly. And that one will be edited, like sometimes when I'm doing a rhyming poem, those have to be edited more, because it's not just about the ideas, it's about the ideas and making it sound a particular way.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the kind of the magic in your style is really letting go of the reins of control of the rules, and just allowing whatever is showing up to show up, and inviting it and embracing it, and not judging it or shunning it or pushing it away.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like how you've embraced your cancer journey.
Yes.
Yeah. So just as an example, as a contrast, you have a really short poem. I don't know if you're going to know the one I'm thinking about. It's about confusion.
Yeah, confusion. Let me show you that.
Can you show us that one just as a contrast to that nice, beautiful long poem?
Yes. Okay, so this one's called Confusion. I am precariously balanced on one toe on a thin spire. If I shift my weight, I will surely fall. I feel like this sometimes.
Yeah.
Not sure where to go.
Did that come out of a particular event?
Yeah, that one came in 2007 when I was in the midst of a struggle about a decision that I had to make that was about some domestic violence issues, and I was not sure what decision to make, and there was like legal pressure and courts involved and things that were out of my control, and I didn't know how to move safely, and so I felt like I was like stuck on this narrow spire balancing, and if I tried to move in any direction, it was going to be wrong and I was going to get slammed for it. And so that's where that poem came from.
Yeah. And did you write that in 2007?
Yeah.
And so what would you say now, after everything that you've learned since 2007, what would you say to that version of yourself who wrote that poem?
Oh, I would say I have a painting about it. It's then me and now me hugging. And I would say to then me, sweetie love, you are going to walk through fire and floods, and you are going to come out all right in the end, and you will have made your dreams come true. I'm with you. Hang in there. Take the steps, take the actions that you need to do for your own safety and for the safety of your family. And eventually you will arrive where I am right now, and it will all have been worth it. It's going to be okay.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful to you, Stephanie, for coming and sharing so openly and honestly and vulnerably with me, particularly, but with everyone who's going to watch this on the replay. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words that you would like to share with our audience today?
I would just like to say that I'm sending love out to everyone, like bubbles of love, like breath on the wind. And if you would like to connect with me on my website at sacred-self.com, which we'll put in the links below, there's a form for emailing with me. If you would like coaching with me, I am available as a coach, and I have some openings right now. have 2 openings right now. So hurry and get your spot if you would like to.
All
And then
right.
also look for the Cancer Chronicles, a cartoon memoir.
Yes, and we'll link to those too, so people can find those. Yeah, there'll be lots of lovely links below this video. So thank you.
Thank you for
Yes,
having me, Esther.
you are so welcome. This has been a lovely chat. I'm so glad you were available to talk with me.
Me too.
All right. We will look forward to seeing your poetry out in the world.
Okay, thank you. Yes, a book will be in the future.
Excellent. All right. Bye, Stephanie.
Right, bye.